Hello, and welcome to the Top Floor, the podcast where Charlotte area CEOs get to tell their leadership journey. My name is Jeff Cass. I'm an executive coach and the leader of a peer advisory group for CEOs and business leaders, and I'll be your host today. And happy to have Parker Perrien from Diamond Solutions with us today. Parker, welcome.
Hey, Jeff, good to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. You and I got a chance to talk a little bit before, and you and I both have roots in the Midwest, but we both ended up here in Charlotte. So maybe let's start with that. How did you end up down here in Charlotte?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I think basically the big thing is honestly it's my wife's health, right? She's had a long journey of chronic health issues, and so sometimes that fear of leaving what's known, right, can keep you. And I had this moment where I'm like, I think, are we going to live in Michigan for the rest of our life and be comfortable, or are we going to? It seemed like environment was part of her struggles around some mold stuff, and so we explored the Cayman Islands. As people that with her illness had just some groups where there was like people were moving there and were doing like life changing, and so we went, and actually was incredibly helpful for her. But just I tell you what, living on an island, I don't get into it too far, but the logistics were pretty wild. So obviously, yeah, when we flew back to the States, we ended up stopping in Charlotte, and it seemed like she did well in Charlotte, and then just thoughts around, a booming city that's growing with mold concerns, new schools going up, and it was like, hey, maybe we can kind of plug into that, and yeah.
So that was more sunshine than Central Michigan, and you can still drive to Michigan. You don't have to fly to the Cayman Islands or go back that way. So those are all good things.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, the logistics are a little bit easier to get to the Midwest. We were from Ohio, so for us, we can easily drive back right up 77, and for you, it's not that different, just a little bit further to get to Michigan, huh?
Exactly. Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, well, good. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about your business. You and I talked. I mean, you've been in and around the asphalt and concrete for quite a while, and it's morphed a bit. So I'm anxious to kind of hear that story, but maybe just tell us first, and let's just start with, what do you do?
Yeah, so we are a broker of asphalt and concrete services. So we're a consolidator, and we have data and systems that allow us to basically simplify the process of our customers, property managers, facility managers, getting work done on their properties across multiple states.
Okay. So are your clients, are they typically commercial or are they more residential?
Only commercial.
Only commercial. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now you've made this switch where you were self-performing, you were doing the paving, you were doing the concrete, and then you decided, well, this is a better direction. So talk about that, because that's a big change.
There's a big shift. Yeah, when we moved, and I always told you that God's is kind of part of the story. So when we moved to Charlotte, we thought it was for my wife's health. That was our logical reason. And honestly, since we've been here 3 years, she's still really sick. In fact, last year she was the sickest I've ever seen her in 12 years. So we kind of go, okay, God, like what are you doing here, right? But when we first moved down here, we had our crew move us in to our rental. At the time we were building a house, and so we moved. They're moving us in, and just getting close to the people that and they start hearing some stories and some things, some cultural issues. It's like, man, we had a consultant that had said, Parker, you guys have a really confusing business model. At the time we were 5 million in sales, and so we had 4. With us moving to Charlotte, it was kind of, in theory, 4 locations, right? 2 in Michigan and now 2 in the Carolinas. And he's like, like 4 locations, $5 million. Like some people have, 2 locations at 20 million, maybe, but like not 4 or 5. And so we already had this kind of in our mind of like, okay, should we be consolidating our shops? We had all of our kind of a crew in Michigan was in Greenville, Michigan. And then in Midland, across the state, 3 hours away, was all of our office people. And so it's like, how do you either lose your office or you lose your guys that do the work? And we honestly, we didn't pull the plug, and we just said, hey, we're going to move the shop to Midland. And we were really blessed. A lot of our guys moved across the state. We didn't ask them to, but they said, hey, we want to stick with you. And it's really neat to see the community and the culture of that. Not expected, right? But just, thankful. So moved to Charlotte, heard some things, and we're like, guys, I think we need to move the shop to Charlotte. What's best for the company. And in doing that, as you can imagine, the guys that were 2.5 hours away in Greenville said, hey man, it's not gonna work for us.
Yeah.
So that kind of forced our hand, right? We had work that was still rolling in. We had a sales guy for that region, and yeah, started, had jobs rolling in, and it was like, what do we do? So I called some friends that have asphalt companies, and I said, hey, I need this seal coated. Hey, I need this paved, and started getting prices back that were like, oh, this makes sense, right? Like we can still make money, and they're making money, and honestly, I think I thought that the margins would just be so slim that it just didn't make any sense to do it. Well, we shut that idea down that, hey, if you sub work out, it works for certain models, but it's usually a higher revenue, lower margin, lower overhead, and we weren't staffed for that. So when my eyes were open to the idea that, hey, you can still make good money and sub, I was like, well, this is interesting. So we started doing that in the Southeast.
Okay.
And I think it was probably October. This was right, post COVID. So one of the I'll never forget. I wish I could forget this because it was not pleasant. But man, I think we had 100 resumes. We're trying to hire in Michigan, and we were going through people. Nobody's showing up after we hire them, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, you don't know what you're doing. I mean, my arrogance is unfortunate, but I was like, I'm going to get involved. So I start, thinking I'll hire some people, right? I talked to 20 people, hired 5 or 10 of them. Nobody showed up. And I mean, you had all the vibes that were right. Like they were good dudes that were going to show up. And it's like, they're just hunting for their unemployment. Not interested at all. Right.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, I was like, guys, this is exhausting. I mean, slowly people were falling off for different reasons. We're leaving. It was just a hard time for everybody in the world. Right. So I think it was October when we kind of pulled the plug. And I forget the exact dates on the kind of the North Midwest operation. Said, hey guys, it's working so well in the Southeast to sub workout. We were kind of trying to flirt with it up north, and it was hard both. And so when we kind of pulled the plug and committed to, we're all in, build processes and systems around how do we source and how do we put the right sub with the right job. Not everybody can pave a Walmart, but maybe that guy can pave patches at a Walmart, right? So kind of sizing up and profiling your subs, and that's a really big part of matchmaking. A big part of what we do, right?
So talk a little bit. That's interesting. I mean, so you went in a couple phases. You still had the operation where you're self-performing in Michigan, and here you were not. When you were completely self-performing, how many employees did you have at that time?
We got up to, it was around 50
employees.
Yeah. Okay. At 5 million, and when we're around 20 million now, and we have around 40 now at
40. Okay. Are they all in Charlotte then? Or are they?
No, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse. I think we're spearheading this idea, right? I mean, we're completely remote. I mean, we have no offices anymore. I have mixed feelings on it. I think there was a season where it felt really freeing and light, and there are days now where I wish we could all just gather in a conference room and have a party, and not be like, we have a Midwest quarterly get together. We have a mid Southwest. Kind of we have employees in Arizona. We've got, I don't know how many states we have people in, but it's I don't know, probably 10 states.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I've talked to a lot more people about virtual businesses and running them. I was actually just talking to a marketing company, and I did an interview with the CEO who runs a 100% virtual marketing company. And how do you engage with the employees? That's part of the challenge, right? I mean, you're not with them, like you said. You get together quarterly, but how do you do it? How do you stay engaged with everybody?
I love that question. Yeah, I think it's, I think of all of the things that I think we're really intentional about it. So I don't think that we totally fail. I think it's something we do quite well. But there's still days where I feel like I wish there was more.
Yeah.
But we, just to, like, in no particular order, but we'll do things like, we call it coffee roulette. So every week or every other week, everybody will hop on a call. We do breakout rooms. We have questions, and it's usually 5 to 6 people in a room. And it's just a time to, like, is that, water cooler conversation, right? Where and it's great. I mean, honestly, it works. People talk and laugh, and you get to know people at a more personal level. We have a monthly all hands, which is everybody on a call, a way for us to kind of bring everybody together, give company updates and spotlights. Obviously, in the post-COVID Zoom days now of just being able to, all of our meetings are video.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, that honestly is, I don't think you can understate how helpful that is. I think, this right here, you don't have to, I don't have to fly to you to have a podcast with you, or obviously we're both in Charlotte, but you know what I mean? Like, you can have podcasts with somebody in California, and it's great, right?
Well, I had a podcast yesterday with somebody that was in India. It was 8 o'clock in the evening when we did it, and he and I were talking just like you and I are talking, and we talked for an hour and a half, and it was great. I mean, so I don't. I think back to the pre-COVID days, and I don't know if you did any video conference calls. In our business, we did none. So it was a huge change for us to go to video. So maybe, was there a adoption for you during that time as you kind of, transition from the in-person, to more virtual?
I think there absolutely was. I remember when he had to make it mandatory that you had your video on. I mean, it was like,
Right.
everybody show up to the video call and nobody was there. It's like, I think we missed the I didn't realize we had to, specify, but please do your hair, please get out of your pajamas, and
Yeah, we want to see your face. Yes. Yeah.
I think the other thing I think being all in on it. There was a moment where we still had an office in Midland, Michigan, and you're kind of thinking about, do we need an office in the Southeast? And
hmm
we ended up pulling the plug on the the rent in Michigan.
hmm
Let's take that money and put it towards culture,
Mm.
towards get-togethers, towards quarterly meetups, or we have biannual leadership team get-together. So next week, actually, the leadership team's flying in, and we're going to go do some fun stuff, have some planning, halftime. But just taking that money and saying, we don't need, the office is cool, but like, just committing to what, if we're virtual, but then you
Right.
need to bring us and make us not virtual at times, right?
It's so interesting. I think our options now are so different, and I think a lot of the employees somewhat expect more options that way, whether it's all it's all virtual, or it's some kind of hybrid, right? I mean, do you find that now as you're hiring people
Sorry, what was the question? Do I find
that
that
they
people are?
want some kind of flexibility, whether it be 100% virtual or some kind of hybrid?
I think it's almost always a positive,
hmm
uh, from what I gather. I will say that I don't know that I always feel the same enthusiasm that they do, that they get to, like, probably work from their home.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm not excited about it. I think it's just there's a level of like, oh, I have freedom, and I'm like, okay, don't get too excited. Like, yes, but there is still expectations and responsibility, So, but
Yeah.
finally, I think it's worked well. We haven't had. I mean, there are people all over, and I feel pretty connected to. We have our product manager for our tech team is in Washington, and we have
Mm.
bi-weekly meetings. And I mean, it's yeah. There's connectivity. I mean, it's not. Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah,
All
the
things.
business world is different, I think. And one thing is employees, but how about for your customers, or your clients, or even your partners that you're brokering to? I mean, are they adapting to this, just like the employees are?
It's a great question. If I start with customers, I think that we are still working out what it looks like to serve a customer virtually, right?
Okay.
And I think
Okay.
that is, to me, it's a fun challenge. I think it is very much a challenge. How do you, there's the local, good old boys club, right? And how do you come into that? Are we going to fly all over the US? Like, that's exhausting, right? Like,
Right.
we really don't travel that much. So we found things, man. Like, one of my favorites is crumble cookies. We send crumble cookies to the office, do the party pack 12, and dude, people love it. I mean, it's
Oh
just
yeah.
cool. Another one that we've been doing is the handwritten cards. I don't know if you've seen this, but where you can type up a message, and I
hmm
have mixed feelings, but it's a handwritten card, right? And I you can automate the AI of how it writes the card. I don't do that. I actually write the card, but
Okay.
probably wouldn't be able to read my handwriting if I did write it. So it's kind of nice to have a machine do that part of it for me.
Yeah.
But it will ship the card to them. You can add a gift card, $10 Starbucks gift card, and they package it for you, ship it. And honestly, the feedback on that is it's that personal touch, which we know the handwritten card days that we're kind of almost going back to. I feel like
Oh yeah.
it's AI's automated everything. So if you actually take time to say something and it was you, it's amazing. So
Yeah.
those are a couple of examples of just things I think that we do with our customers to try to make it feel a little closer.
Okay. Okay. And how about then your partners? I mean, you know them more. You probably do repeat business with them. Is it an issue with virtual, or do you find that it works pretty smoothly?
Yeah, I think there's more to be done. I think we have project managers on that are local to our job sites, so
Mm.
that's part of, there is a Diamond representative on site on most of our sites, which
Oh,
is
okay.
our uniques. I think that we're largely still overseeing the project, hands involved. Um, so there is still a Diamond person talking with our subs, which I think helps. There's not as much of the whining and dining. We do some of that, where we'll, if they're in, subs near a headquarters, oftentimes, somebody will take them out to eat.
Hmm.
So, but by and large, I mean, I think that they're excited to get work. I think that at the end of the day, if the numbers work and we've simplified it, generally we hear great feedback on our jobs are just like, we've eliminated a lot of the complexity, right? So
Hmm.
you walk in, you know exactly what to do. We've kind of done all of that not fun stuff so that when they can show up, they can actually do what they love to do, which is grind and pave and paint.
Yeah.
Like, let's
Okay.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because I was talking to another business, a law firm, and they were talking about, some of the things that they did well and what they did well with their marketing. I mean, and so they found the customers, they kind of found the issue, the cases and things like that. And it sounds like maybe if you look back on your, history, is that what you did well? Because it seems to have fit into what you're doing today. Maybe you can just comment on that.
Yeah, it's a great question. You're saying specifically around marketing?
Yeah, so marketing, finding customers, setting up jobs, it seems like, that's something that you guys must do very well because that's what you do 100% of the time today.
100%. Yeah, no, exactly. I would say this. I think that we call ourselves a marketing and sales and marketing and technology company at this point,
Mm,
right?
okay.
We say our uniques are like we're clear, simple, and fast. So we've taken the complexity of an industry that is, and we're still doing this, right? But this is one of the things I'm super passionate about is taking these complex parking lots that some people scratch their head and go, how do you solve this? And saying it's not that complex. Let's dumb
Mhm,
it down a little bit and say, hey, we're going to go down 2 inches. We're going to put back 2 inches. Like
mhm,
that's a way oversimplification. But I think just taking some of that, how do you fix this problem? Like, well, it's asphalt. So
mhm.
but yeah, in terms of marketing, I would say, marketing. I think you need marketing to get to the ability to do what I love, which is consultative selling, right? Like I want
Okay,
to help. My college degree, or that I didn't finish, so I don't have a degree. But what I was going for was counseling. I was looking-
okay.
So the idea of helping, I always say that sales is actually counseling, or you're serving somebody, you're trying to help them solve a problem if you're a good
Yep,
salesman. So
yep.
um, the idea of somebody saying, hey, I've got a parking lot, what do I do? I have this much money to spend, and then thinking about the integrity of them giving you your budget and you not taking advantage of that, but saying, how can I actually help you steward that money well?
Mhm.
That gets me super excited. And then to prove them that you do honor that they told you their budget, I also love that. I mean, if they want me to spend, their full 200 grand, I will do that if that's what you want. But if you say, hey, if I don't need to spend it, I don't want to spend it for you. I want to treat it like it's my money, So I think, again,
Mhm.
I don't think that's normal. I think there are other companies that do that, but I don't think that's the by and large the integrity in the industry. So I love
Okay.
being able to bring to a customer and saying, hey, we want to partner with you to take care of your asset.
Okay. So you're really bringing, I would say, a knowledge of paving and concrete to help them, get the most bang for their buck is really what you're trying to do. I mean, that's what it sounds like, which may
And
be different
simplify that
than
all. Sorry, go ahead.
no, maybe is a little different than some of the folks that are trying to sell their paving and concrete work. Maybe that's a little different than what they had, and that's the marriage. I mean, I'm trying to see a little bit, Parker, how this kind of comes together, right? Because it feels like you have some you have a unique approach to sales and marketing.
Yeah.
And a unique approach with clients that maybe is helping you grow. Because otherwise, this wouldn't be growing to the 20 million or whatever else you're going to be next year.
Right. No,
Yeah.
that's fair. I think when you think about the process, I just tell somebody, go call a plumber or an electrician. If you don't have a parking lot to manage, it's the same problems with your parking lot that you have as a homeowner trying to get somebody to come out and answer their phone, show up, give you a proposal, actually come back once you've signed like I want to pay you money. Like, please let me pay you to come help me. And it's like
Hmm.
it's like pulling teeth, right? And so
Yeah.
I think we're very much the opposite, when it comes to getting parking lot work done. we're there. I always say, like, I want to drive the car for them as fast as they want me to drive. I'm not trying to rush them. I'm not trying to be pushy, but I want to take them and do everything that I wish somebody would do for me for them when it comes to overseeing a parking lot.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it makes perfect sense, Parker. Now, I want to go back to one thing you said because you still have people, you have these project managers that are on site. So your geography is not 100% of the United States. Is it just where you have these project managers? Is that it?
It's a great question. Yeah, we travel. The project managers do travel quite a bit. So
Okay.
we're not in all 50 states. I think roughly at this point it keeps growing, but I think we're in the 35 or so states that we serve well.
Okay.
That's expanding. I kind of equate it to DoorDash. When I remember in Midland, Michigan, where I was from, I remember opening up the DoorDash app and it's saying, basically like make a request, like say that you want us here. We're not here yet, but like how many people want us? And when there's enough, demand, we'll fire it up, right? But you need the drivers, you need the orders to make the drivers have work to do, and so our model kind of needs that similar model, right? You have to have the subs, but the subs, like part of our value is that we have subs that work for us every week. We have lots of subs that work for us every week. So if
Okay.
a job that needs to go tomorrow, we can get it done tomorrow.
Wow.
And you don't have any crews. How do you do that? Well, if you call the sub that I call, well, you don't have any buying power with him because you're a one-off. But I need him every day, right? Or every other, you know what I mean? Like probably an exaggeration, but it's not hard to understand that buying power, there's a real value in that. I get pricing and I get better scheduling. So again, I think that's one of the operational efficiencies that we bring. Oftentimes, if you were to call our subs directly, you're going to get higher price. It's going to probably depend on the time of the year, how they're feeling that day, if they're feeling like they can win from you or not. We're a lot more structured in terms of like, if you're this type of customer, if you're a new customer, like our markups aren't fluctuating based on, I hate to say this, but like, oh, you're your grandma that, like, we can take advantage of because you're not going to price check us. Like, we don't get into all of that minutia. It's a lot more like there's some objective criteria, right? That this is the price that you get.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's pretty structured is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, good. That helps. I think everybody kind of understand the business. It's unique, and the shift has been really cool. I mean, that's kind of cool, as we kind of unpack it here. So let's shift gears a little bit here, okay? So you, as you look at your team today, it's certainly changed. So if you had to give advice to a CEO or a new leader on the important things, the 1 to 2 most important things that they need to do in order to create a high performing team, what would it be?
A great question. I think I have a couple of things that run through my mind. I think the one thing I would say that changed our business was EOS.
Okay.
Operating system traction. I always say that you could go to MBA, you can go get your MBA, or you can go to college, or you can read traction. Like, it is the most practical business book I've ever read. And it doesn't just tell you in theory, I always remember Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, talked about the idea of getting the right people on the bus and in the right seats. And maybe Jim talked about this, but EOS took that and said, well, what is the bus? So the bus is your core values. And here's how you create your core values. They give you a structure for how to think through and how to, like, almost the model for how to come up with them and kind of derive them from who you are, right? And then they said the seats are, I think the seats are, I remember, it's been a minute, but are you familiar with traction?
Oh yeah, it's on my shelf, and Jim Collins is on this shelf over here. I don't know if you can see it, but they're both there.
I think traction calls it GWC, gets it, wants it, and has the capacity. So when you're putting somebody in a seat, they say that do they have the capacity? Do they get the seat? Do they want the seat? And do they have the capacity to fill the seat? But if you want to walk on my bus, you have to have my core values. It's hire, fire, reward, and review around core values, which I just think is, I mean, for so long we didn't do that. And I remember when I got that book thinking, oh, this makes so much sense. Why some of these people, I don't mind being friends with you, I just don't want to work with you. And we don't have to be hurt by that. It's just a thing. Like, I don't want to work with somebody. I'm like, hey, I want to grow. And you're like, I don't want to grow. Well, that's fine. Then go find a different bus. Like, that's nothing wrong with it. But my bus is a growth bus. Like, we are always learning, always growing is one of our core values. And what that means is we never plateau. We reach the top of one mountain and we're looking for the next top that's higher. We're never satisfied. And not everybody's built like that. And that's okay. But you are not going to enjoy being on this bus if you are wanting to kind of coast and float down in the canoe and just kind of put the paddle in the boat and kind of like, you know what I mean? And again, that's not a right or wrong. It's not a moral issue. It's just, so to me, those core values are critical. Right? What's that?
It works, right? I mean, we know that.
It does. And it's so much fun. I think on the other side of that, it's so much fun to work with people that have similar values. So, that would be one of my pieces of advice. And if we go back to the question, was just what advice would you give to a
CEO that's putting together a CEO or leaders that are putting together high performing teams? So EOS, you got to have those values, you know, make sure that everybody has those values. That's a great one. That's a perfect one.
I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to put force this one in here, but I just don't know how to not. I think having priorities straight, man. I think business will mess you up. I think that you will jack up your priority. You will put family last. You will put God last. You will put money first, not because you want to, but because you feel like you have to. Right? There will be seasons where you have lots of money, and there'll be seasons where you don't have lots of money. And if you just kind of blowing with the wind and you don't really know your order, for me, it's God first, right? It's God first. I wear the shirt. I always tell people, I don't wear it for you. I wear it for me. When I wear this out, it reminds me that I need to live with my priorities straight, right?
Okay.
It's God, it's my wife, then it's my kids. It's not just God, then family. It's my wife she is next, right? And then it's my kids, and then it's Diamond. And I will tell you, I jack that up all the time, but I believe that, and I try to live with that structure, right?
Okay.
So I think that is, to me, if you don't have that, then you're gonna end up divorced. You know, they used to call it an asphalt season. It was October was divorce season. It was like, you know, husbands are never home. They're always out at work, and marriages are, you know, being sacrificed. And it's like, it's not worth it. Find a different career. If that's the outcome, that if you can't struck, go ahead.
So yeah, so you're saying for the leader, make sure you have your priorities first, because if you don't have your priorities first, then the people that are coming into the business are going to be jacked up as well, right? Is that what you're saying?
I think you can't lead with things aren't good at home for you, and you're going home and your wife's pissed. It just doesn't work. It will. You can make it through a year, maybe two, but when your life starts falling apart because your priorities are jacked up, it will trickle down, and it will be hell to work in a company that has that kind of messed up priorities. I don't know if I'm saying it well, but I think it's.
Well, I think it's a great point, Parker, and I think I don't know your whole history, but you know, I know you lived in Michigan. You had a very different business, and you know, you were thinking of moving to the Caymans. You moved to Charlotte, and you've changed the whole business plan. And how many years later, you're still going, right? So I guess, and how many years has it been since you started the business?
Well, my dad started it when I was 17. I'm 34, so that was 17 years ago, and then I bought him out in 2014. So 14 is kind of when I feel like, you know, that was when I would say that I took over and started. Going.
So 10 years.
Maybe just make what was that?
No, 10 years. I mean, you've gone through a lot of change in 10 years, and you've continued to develop a team, and the business has continued to develop. So I think you have a lot of credibility in what you say, is kind of my read on that. Okay.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I think this is maybe a good tie-in to one of the personal things that happened. I don't need to, I mean, this isn't a sob story. This is just a fact. We found out in October of 23. Yeah, 22. Sorry, October 22. We got that call that nobody wants to get. That, hey, you know, you have a baby. We knew he had a baby, but hey, some testing came back, and your baby is likely to have trisomy 18. I remember my wife calling. She's crying. I'm like, we elected not to run the genetic test. Why did they run the genetic test? And I was this whole moment feeling, you know, violated that the medical system didn't honor, you know, they just anyway, whatever. So God knew that, right? So we're thankful at this point to say that we walked into January when Thea was born with the knowledge of her condition, and we're ready and prepared for her to not live. And we were told that she would, you know, 1% chance she'll make it out alive. Day 2 is, I mean, it was just so like, they don't live, is basically what we were told. So get ready, right? She's still alive. So that's, you know, fast forwarding a little bit. She's still alive and doing well, all things considered. But you think about the business before we moved, in the business before Thea, there's no way when Thea was born, I took off from work. I spent time with my daughter that we didn't know how many days we were going to have with her, right? And I was able to do that, and the business was able to continue on. So I just think about how God goes before us, and in our move to Charlotte, being around a good medical system and a good, and the business model changing. Like there's no way. There is no way that with the self-performing crews all over, all of the headaches and issues, I was constantly on the phone, constantly dealing with that. And I was able to give my little girl focused attention that I needed to give her. And then fast 4 months after Thea was born, Hope got super sick. And this goes back to those priorities, right? Is it business or is it family? And so Hope got super sick, like to the point where she couldn't move. I mean, I don't know how to, like, if you imagine, like, she was a vegetable. If you think about a vegetable, like she couldn't herself, she couldn't move her hand, she couldn't really text on her phone, she couldn't talk. Her body was so weak, right? I think it was 2 months in, and this had, she'd had crashes, ups and downs throughout her medical journey, and I thought, okay, she'll bounce back. And it was about 2 months in, one of her brothers, pulled me aside. He's like, "Hey, man, I think you need to like consider, maybe pulling back from work and really focusing on, like, she's just laying in bed every day and she's not getting better." And I was like, it was a good check. So I ended up pulling back from work. In the middle of trying to grow and all of these things that are happening, I was just like, I'm going to take care of my wife.
Yeah.
And so I started researching, reading books, listening to podcasts. And, when I woke up in the morning, I wasn't thinking about diamond. I was thinking about asphalt. I was thinking about how to help my wife. Right. Fighting for her when she couldn't fight for herself. So I say that all to say, I think that if you don't have your priorities right, man, I didn't ask for that. But if you don't, I call it playing the hand. And I tell people you can poker with a bad hand. I don't think that the hand that I have is what anybody else wants. But I will tell you that I'm happy. Hope's happy. We're thankful, right? But the biggest part of that is playing the hand. I have these cards in my hand. I have a daughter with special needs. I have a wife that can't walk. What am I going to do? Am I going to try to wish that I had this life over here? Am I going to wish that I was at the beach this weekend? No, I'm going to be where I'm at, and I'm going to live the life that I have, that I've been given. And I don't know how to. If you play the hand that you're dealt, there is joy in that. Like I don't even tell you, but it is so much fun to try to be creative with what you have versus wish you had something that you don't.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's interesting. And there's a lot that's happened there. I mean, so Thea is doing well, all things considered. Is Hope doing better than she was last year?
She is. Yeah, she's had, currently we're in the middle of a little bit of a down, but the roller coaster continues. But she's had a lot of up days. I think around February, she started having days where she was walking. It would just be a day, but it was like, I'll take it. One day of Hope walking, and then she'd be down. So Thea just spent 3 weeks in the hospital again. Do I love being in the hospital? No. But she's home. She's smiling. We're thankful for more time with her.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It can be challenging to go with the flow, but yeah. When I'm at the hospital,
Well, I think that's
hospital that you can enjoy and that go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, Parker, I think it's great advice. Listen, I heard somebody say the other day, I was talking to them and they said, be where your feet are, be present basically. Right. Which I think is I never heard that term before, but be present is kind of what you're saying, right? Be where you're at, and more importantly, have the priorities that kind of allow you to be present of the things that are the most important for you. Right. So that's really cool. I don't think anybody could have answered that question better. I appreciate that, Parker. Okay. All right, so let's keep going here. So let's talk a little bit more then, unless there's anything else you want to bring up about your family, or the priorities. I mean, is there anything else you want to talk about there?
I think we covered it.
Okay. All right. So let's shift a little bit then. Let's talk about maybe the challenges you have today with the way the business is, because it's, I'm sure it's not all sunshine and rainbows, even though you made this transition. I mean, there's still challenges. So what kind of challenges do you have?
Yeah, I think, at 20 million, we're facing a ceiling, and we're trying to break through the 20 million ceiling. And I've always been fascinated with these so-called ceilings. It's funny, we kind of had a ceiling at 5 million. We spent 3 years at 5, and then all of a sudden it was 9, and then it was 18 and then 20. And it's like, okay, boom, boom, boom. And then right now this 18, 20 million area has been a challenge. So, we staffed up for growth, that having 2 years in a row where we were doubling, we were burning people out and, asking so much. And so we kind of like, hey, I think we can hit 30 million. So we staffed up for that 30, and that creates some problems, right? When you're on year 2 of the people in place and the structure in place for that growth, but it's not coming. So leading through that and making the adjustments that are needed to make sure that, we are able to keep going, right? So I think that's definitely a challenge. Growing quickly, I think, is just a challenge. I mean, I think, people told me this early on, but growing from 1 million to 2 million is not the same as 10 to 20 or 20 to 40. It's very different. So, yeah, I think that's one of the big challenges. I think, I have a phrase that hard isn't bad and easy isn't good. And this is another one of those like core beliefs for me that if you think that easy is good luck, right?
Yeah.
But that is how we are taught. That is the world that we live in. That's what's preached to us, is that you should chase easy. Like, oh, I had a good day. Well, what was good about it? Well, everything kind of went well, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know that I would recommend chasing the hard days or trying to chase things that are all jacked up. But it's when we grow is when things are hard. And so
Yeah.
I think that we're in a season of tremendous growth. We've leaned on other companies for marketing, and this year we've really said, hey, we're going to learn marketing. So we are, I don't know how many hooks in the pond we have of different methods of marketing, but we probably have eight or so, give or take, different avenues that we are pursuing leads. I mean, we on an average month, we're around 200 to 400 leads a month of qualified leads that come in that we system.
That's great.
So we're certainly reaching people, which is great. I think, figuring out how to reach them and serve them well. And you think about segmenting your customers. And we went for a while, it was, who are your target customers? It's property managers. And we knew that we didn't want to do residential, and we knew that we didn't like working with GCs. That was two things. We're like, okay, every job we do for a GC, we show up, they say it's ready to go, and it's like literally never ready. And there's always dumpsters in our way and painters over here. And it's like, this is awful. What we want to do, and we can't get it done. So GC's kind of we've rolled out for now, and then residential. And I think right now we're in the process of saying, okay, hey, is everybody else fair game? Is a church fair game? Is somebody going to one property fair game? Or is it, do we want to try to target people that have 30 plus properties? So we don't have that dialed in yet, but we're kind of in that process of we only have so many people, and we can only serve so many people. And so it's great to have leads, but can we give hundreds of people the right type of service? So it's a journey. I mean, it's just trying to figure out which levers to pull on. But I would say that's probably the hardest thing right now, is just seeing close rates, somewhat drop as volume increases, and trying to figure out, okay, well, what did we stop doing? What are we lacking? Why close rates changing? So I spent for a month, I spent some time like digging into calling customers and getting feedback on, are we delivering what we said we'd deliver? Or the sales process like, and I get all this great feedback on like, you guys are one of the best companies. We never worked with somebody like you. And I'm like, well, that's great, but not really helpful. Hoping for a little more like, yeah, you guys really dropped the ball on this project. I'm like, well, I can work with that. I don't like it, but I can work with that,
Right.
So currently honestly, to be honest, we're still looking for kind of that, what is it that we need to change to kind of help grow beyond this point?
Okay. Yeah. It sounds like you're doing a lot of the right things. I mean, it's not bad to get good news from customers. I mean, if that's the type of customer you want to deal with and you want to keep finding more of them in a bigger geography or whatever that is, but I can understand kind of the journey here you're going through. So that's kind of cool. So as you come into these kind of problems, or you discover them, these challenges, maybe is a better way to say it, who helps you with those decisions? Do you have a good coach or a mentor that helps you with these?
That's a good question. Yeah, I'm trying to think. So we have, our leadership team is just A players. Like, we have a great team around us. So obviously we have that internal team that we lean on. I am a part of C12. Is a group that guys that get together once a month, and I can pick their brains, and they pick mine. And so that's been a good group of other CEOs. Trying to think of sometimes I honestly, the last year and a half for me with Thea, and then with Hope's Health challenges, there are days where the hand that I wish that I had, right, that I don't right now, is the hand of just being a part of more groups and more like networking. And right now, and it's probably an excuse, to be honest, because I think about, I can pick up the phone and call people, but I don't have anybody in my life right now that's just like that one person that I go to and get mentored by. I've had seasons of that, and that was really, really great. So definitely kind of missed that. Probably a good reminder just to maybe keep my eyes open and pray about that.
Okay. All right. How long have you been part of C12?
Yeah, good question. C12, I think I've been a part of for, I think it's been 2.5 years.
Okay.
Started in Michigan. The closest group was in Detroit, so 2.5 hours away. So I visited a couple times, but I was like, and I was still self-performing, so it's just not. There's no way I can guarantee once a month that I could give a day. Um, Obviously, now the group meets like literally 3 minutes from my house, so it's like
Okay.
amazing. I can wake up and pop over there, and very convenient. So
Okay. Okay. But just, if you can talk a little bit about that, because I'm involved in that with Vistage in the peer group. So it's a similar
yeah.
peer group, right? So you have other CEOs that basically you get together once a month and maybe talk about the value you get out of that.
Man, it's huge. It's funny. Everybody in the group talks about how there's always that like, do I have a day to day? Like, is this like, am I really going to prioritize this? Is that that moment where you're like, should I skip this week or this month or once a month?
Hmm.
So it's
Yep.
every time I go, man, I'm always shocked by how God shows up in the topics that are discussed.
Mm.
There was when all this stuff with growing and scaling was happening, it was like very much on my mind, and I walked in that day and thought, what is it today going to be about? Some HR, I don't know, something that is just like, okay, good stuff to know. But it was on scaling. I'm like, God, this is like, I'm so glad I got so much out of it. And it was like, needed, um, uh, forgive me here. Yeah, it was needed, and it's super helpful. So yeah, I think that's been good. We give a call giving a core presentation. So you
Hmm.
kind of present your business to the other CEOs and bring up key issues, and that is also really helpful to have businesses of different sizes that can speak to things that they see. They do a tour and interview, so they'll like meet with my leadership team, like a 2 hour where they call and they'll have ask them questions. They'll talk with my wife and ask questions like, is Parker being a good husband? Is there anything we can hold Parker accountable to? Is he yeah, and how is he doing leading your family? Is he prioritizing you or the business, and those real
Hmm.
like personal side, but and then talking to the leadership team about, do you feel comfortable talking? Can you challenge Parker? Is he is there any blind spots that he's not seeing that might be hard for you to talk to him about? So it's cool, right? I think it's you get that once a year where you're kind of on the hot seat.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, I really enjoyed that part of it. And they're just good guys. So I think they're kind of all over Charlotte. So there's times where I feel like it can be challenging to stay in touch outside of the once a month meetings. But I think
Hmm.
as a business owner, it can be lonely, right? There's the phrase, it's lonely at the top. I remember when I first bought my dad out, just kind of feeling like there was nobody else that I knew that really had the challenges of the pressure of business ownership,
Hmm.
um, payroll, and whatever,
Yeah.
different things that just people don't normally have to worry about. So having those other people that you could call that are in your corner that care about you, I think is huge.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, so as we're talking about this, I mean, talk a little bit about maybe what you enjoy most in your current role.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I love just building teams.
Hmm.
I love solving problems. So I think right now trying to figure out how to crack the code on 20 is just super fun.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
uh, I think when things are easy, it's easy to get complacent. So I wrestle with that, balancing that when things are just going super smooth. So I like the challenge. Um, I like having clarity, right? And what are the issues? Some days when I wake up and there's no issues, or it feels like everything's just flowing really, I have a hard time plugging into that. I'm like, man, what? And it's not that there are no issues. It's just that I'm not aware of them, right?
Right.
So I probably enjoy the most when I wake up in the morning and I know I don't care if it's a problem or but I know what I have to do, right? And it's the purpose. It's that like, um, I will say I probably wrestled as a CEO, especially having key leadership. Probably one of the hardest things at this size for me is knowing how to work through them and with them,
Hmm.
when you're so used to being able to just go right to the person, deal with the problem. And now when I do that, I usually light a fire.
Hmm.
The holders and I get a call like, "Hey man," and it's like, sorry. So that's been an area of growth for me. But Yeah, I love having clarity in the struggles and the. I don't, does that make sense? I feel like it's kind of an odd answer, but I
Well, no,
truly
I mean,
enjoy
look,
that.
it's your answer, okay? I mean, I think a lot of us are motivated by certain things, right? So for you, I mean, you love challenges. So for a day when you have no hard things, you're looking around saying, "What's going on? How come I don't have something that's a little more difficult?" Probably, right? I'm guessing that's kind of what you do, right? That's why easy isn't always good for you, I guess, right?
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So look, I mean, it is what it is. And I think, a lot of us, we're motivated by, growing. So I think a lot of people are in that same boat, with you. That's where you are. So I can understand that. That's why you would say that's what you enjoy. I retired from the corporate life. And for me, I still needed to have something like this where I was engaged with people like you and other folks that wanted to continue to grow because I enjoy growing businesses. I enjoy building teams. I enjoy, solving problems. Those are all things that kind of get me going, every single day. So I can completely understand where you're at. So again, it's your answer, okay? But I think a lot of other folks probably would relate to that well. So
that's cool.
yeah.
That's good. I
Okay.
think in
So
marketing,
let's see. So let's do.
oh,
So,
sorry.
no, go ahead. What
I
were you
was
gonna
just saying,
say?
I really enjoy like finding good people. I think when we're in like right now, we're not in a season where I need a lot of new people, but I think when we are, I think it's super fun to see those talents and abilities and then place them. I think that's also super fun is
Yeah.
helping people see what they're good at and they want to manage somebody or they want to do this. And you're like, no, you need to try this. And then when they do it and the lights turn on, I'm like, oh man, I love this. That is such a win.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's probably part of team building for you, right? I mean, you find a good person that can fit into a different spot that maybe wasn't being filled as much. So that's pretty cool. So you mentioned a couple things there. You're kind of at a ceiling, that 20 million ceiling. If you had to give everybody kind of the aspirations for your company over the next 5 years, let's say, what would they be?
A great question. I think revenue is where your mind goes to with this because that's kind of the hard measure of growth. Um,
Hmm.
I think is that what you're asking, or is that
You tell me. I mean, we could. I don't necessarily want to get in the nitty gritty. I mean, you always, if you're going to grow, you want to be a profitable growth. So I'm assuming whenever you give me a revenue number, that's what you're saying. You want to grow profitably to 40, 50, 60, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think I mean we would articulate our 5-year vision is to be the Uber of asphalt. That is our goal. I think there are times and seasons where you can see that clearer than other times, right?
Hmm.
When the moment is there, and right now at that ceiling, I'm kind of like there's moments of like, man, we got to break through this before we get to that. It's a pretty grand vision. Um,
Hmm.
I think that idea, man, of just being able for property managers to hop on an app and get parking lot work done. Um, like very simplistically and
Yep.
it to be I can do it tomorrow, I can do it today. I mean, that'd be pretty freaking wild to have that kind of. I don't know, and today there's so many challenges with that the setup that's needed for most projects, but I think that we're solving some of those problems that most people would say, how do you get stuff done this fast? um,
Hmm.
as you lean into a model, you start to see, oh wow, like I talked about with the buying power thing. Like, how do you get something done? So like, well, we have their schedule, right? But you have to have consistent work for that. So uh,
Hmm.
we're learning things about like market share. That's something that again, EOS talk about that. But what does it mean to go into a new market and become known there, and to
Hmm.
into where people are just they love the experience of diamond. I think we're very much growing in that. But yeah, I would say the 5-year vision is to be that kind of that. If you have a commercial property in a major city in the U.S., diamond is one of the top 3 people you're gonna be asking for a proposal.
So would you say you're disrupting kind of that paving and concrete type business, for those type of customers, where that industry, disrupting that industry?
I think disrupting is a fun word. I think
Hmm.
it's a big word. I love the word. I would say sure, yes. I
Hmm.
think probably all feel like we're disruptive in some ways. But yeah, I think that we are. But I guess I'm
Hmm.
hesitant to say that because I think that we all live in our own bubble, and so
Hmm.
in the bubble of what I know, I feel like we are very much disrupting.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And I think I'm saying that with humility to know that there are other things happening and there's other things I'm not aware of, and I'm sure there are other people out there with very great ideas that are, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because maybe this kind of goes to that. I mean, when you're competing for a project, are you typically competing with somebody that's local, that is self-performing, or are you competing with somebody like yourself, that would be more similar to yourself?
That's a great question. I would say that typically we're competing with people that are more local.
More local. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I would say, at least from what you're talking about, everything that you would say to me, you are making changes. If you're not disrupting, you are changing that marketplace, maybe. Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair.
Smaller word. How's that?
I like it.
So you've talked a little bit about things that you've learned about yourself and advice you give to others, but I'm going to narrow in on that. I want you to summarize. So if you look back over the last 10 years that you've pretty much run the business, what have you learned about yourself?
Uh, that's a big question.
I
What
know.
what have I learned about myself? Um, yeah, at some point I'm planning to write a book, and maybe this will be the question that will help trigger those thoughts. But I mean, I think that there's.
I
Give me a
find it,
second
let
to
me just,
summarize.
well, as you're thinking, I find with people that I talk to, they don't always look back on that, right? Because they learn something every day, and you probably do too. But, it's good to sometimes take a look back. And I think it's helpful to take a look back every once in a while.
Yeah, no, I love looking back. I think it's so. The question is, how have I grown?
Yeah. Or what have you learned about yourself? So those would be similar. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, I think that I would say I don't. Yeah, one of the things I've learned about myself, or that I'm learning right now, I will say, is that uh, I apologize. I didn't I can fire stuff off here. I think that recently I will say this. I say recently, humility is something I had this moment. It was probably like 8 months ago, and I was like, I don't understand what it means to be a humble person.
Mm.
God has a lot to say about humility, uh, right? Blessed
Hmm.
are the poor in spirit, for they will inherit the kingdom of God. But he also says that he will reject the proud. And so I had this moment where I'm like, man, how do you know if you're humble or proud? Like if I walk in here like I'm a pretty humble person, you would laugh, as I would, right? It's not something you can go around like. I don't believe that the idea of calling yourself humble is what's the word here? It doesn't
It's an
work.
oxymoron.
It's an oxymoron, right? So then I'm like, well, then how do you grow in this thing? If there's anything else, I'm like, hey Jeff, I've been really working on whatever attribute, and I'm like, yeah, I've been really growing. You would be like, oh, that's really cool. But humility is one of those elusive ones. The more that you chase it, the more it kind of slips away, and you become proud in your humility. And
Hmm. Hmm.
the reason this comes to my mind with that question, I think, is I think business ownership, man, is a roller coaster of pride and humility,
Mm.
right? You'll be humbled.
Hmm.
And there are mountaintops where you feel like you have done it. And I think you've done it in your bubble. When we were 1 million, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, we did $1 million. And then when we did, 2 million, it was like, wow. And you don't know the $20 million business owners. You only know one of those guys, and that's just like so far off. And then there's the $50 million guy that you're like, oh my, he's a unicorn, and you say 500 million, a billion. Like these are just companies that are on the the exchange, like that's not
Hmm.
real. And so yeah, as you hit these different milestones, I think there's you can get excited, but I think that the pride is the dangerous part, because I think that is, pride comes before the fall. I mean, it literally is. What I've seen happen in those moments of pride is I kind of I become, as I look back, I've seen there almost be this sense of like I have the answers, and
Hmm.
I'm in the room that has the no. And I hate that. I hate that I'm saying that out loud, but I think that it's absolutely, it's been humbling to see that there were moments maybe where I had some good ideas,
Yep.
but if you don't stay humble in those moments, then you will soon be the one that needs all of the good ideas. And
Hmm.
a couple of those roller coasters where I don't think I managed those emotions well. Um, and I'm excited and encouraged. I'm sure I'll fail again, but I'm also excited to hopefully maybe make that down a little less down and the up a little less up, right? I think in terms of managing that reality
Hmm.
of Parker have good ideas, absolutely. Does Parker always still need other people and always need, right, to stay in that posture of uh, God has what I need, and
Hmm.
I need Him. And there are things outside of my control. There are things inside of my control that can change. So that'd be probably that's my answer.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, it's your answer, so that's good. I like the roller coaster of pride and humility because I sense that from a lot of people. I sense it from you today. I mean, you brought it up when you were running into problems hiring people in 2020. Okay, then I'm going to go try and hire people. Well, all of a sudden you're humbled. I had the same problem, right? Or as your leadership team gets bigger and your crew gets bigger, if you bypass somebody that works for you and go talk to them and kind of deal with them, guess what happens? You create a boulder, in your opinion, right? I mean, now you got a problem, right? So you have to continue to learn and get humbled by those kind of things. Look, I mean, as long as you're continually learning, frankly, that's probably the bigger thing. But interesting answer. I enjoyed it, Parker. I think that's great. I don't think I've ever heard anybody explain it that way, but I would say that I think a lot of us have felt that same roller coaster.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
All right. So I got one more question for you. So if you had to give advice to a new executive or a new CEO, could be a new founder of a company, kind of like the way you found yourself, probably the way you felt, what would it be?
It's a good question. I kind of want to say that some of the answers I've already given are kind of yeah, I don't want to be redundant though, but I think that if I were to summarize, I would say read EOS.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just do it. You probably won't get through half the book before quarter of the book before you're like, oh my gosh, I want to go do what it talks. Like it gives you homework. Like there's worksheets to do. So there's lots of crafting those core values and crafting the different things. So I think that is one. I would also say I do think that having I don't know that you can always just go out and choose a mentor. I think this maybe I struggle with that. I think if you have a mentor, I think that's great. The mentors in my life have come a little more providentially, if you will. Like
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't like I was going out and interviewing people to be my mentor.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
meet that person at church or you meet that person here or there or whatever, and it's like your paths cross and it happens.
Yep.
I'm not saying that's how it has. That's how it's happened for me. So I think if you have a mentor, have that person that you can go to. Andy Elliott, if you're familiar with him, I like his phrase. He calls it cutting the check for speed. I think being willing to spend money to get the knowledge of somebody who's been where you're going, finding that person that's ahead of you, and then being willing to pay to get that knowledge. Right? I think you don't always have to pay, but I think that's often there's going to be an exchange there.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a guy recently that I hopped on it was like a 30-minute coaching call, like a random kind of random. He used to be a big YouTube influencer. I paid $100 for 15 minutes of this guy's time, which whatever. The one nugget I took away was he asked me, he said, Parker, who are you getting advice from on marketing? And at the time, some of the guys that we're using were smaller. And he said, are they the size that you want to be? And I was like, oh, no.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you need to go find the guy that is the size that you want to be and then do what he did.
Mm-hmm.
The $2 million guy didn't know how to get to 40 million. If he did, he would already be there. And I thought that's fair. It doesn't mean you can't listen to the $2 million guy, that people that are smaller don't have good input. I think that was my other thing, is like kind of balance that with humility here. Like everybody, you can learn from anybody, but probably go seek out getting somebody who's kind of ahead of where you're at. And we all are at different places. So the $1 million guy might want, you could probably learn a lot from the $2 to $3 million guy. You don't need the $20 million paycheck cost of that, that guy. Is that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's good. I mean, that's good advice. And I appreciate you summarizing, because a lot of times what I'll do is I'll kind of, I like packaging, together kind of some of the topics that we have, so that they're more compartmentalized. Because I feel like most folks don't listen to 60 minutes on a podcast. They listen to little pieces of it, So that's the way a lot of folks are. So that's helpful when you can summarize it like that. So look, Parker, I enjoyed today. I really enjoyed hearing about your business and kind of the journey there. Your personal journey is very interesting. I think I can see why you've come from, where you were self-performing to, the kind of the transition to this business that you have. And it is somewhat disruptive. That's what I would say, so it'll be interesting to see what you do with it over the next 5 years. So listen, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. Great to be here.